everyone. My name is Ankit Rajak, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all in our online session on corporate governance best practices organized by Jhansi Smart City and Rise Jhansi Incubation Center. In the dynamic leadership of business corporate governance, stand as the cornerstone of ethical leadership and sustainable growth. Today, we are privileged to have Priya Gupta share her wisdom on navigating this crucial terrain. So, on behalf of Jhansi Smart City and Jhansi Rise Incubation Center, we welcome you, Priya ji.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ankit, and the whole team.
Yeah. So, our today's invited mentor is a founder of Sarvpriye Foundation, Board of Governor, Institute of Internal Auditor, and she is also a alumni of IIMK. She has a broad experience of different domain of a startup, and she is also doing a great work as social entrepreneur. So in today's session, she will going to share a different best practices of corporate governance. We will also going to understand the importance of corporate governance for you as a startup as well as entrepreneur. So I request you, Priyaji, kindly start.
Thank you so much, Ankit, for this introduction. This was a very fancy introduction, although. And I would just like to mention before starting this session that I was caught up with high fever and cold for the last 2, 3 days. So please bear me if there is any hiccup during the session. And of course, when I get back on my feet, then I can just adjust with that. So I hope you all will understand. So, if I introduce myself, he has already introduced. There are few things which I have not mentioned everywhere, and of course, that's why he couldn't read as well. I run a marketplace that is an e marketplace that is a startup for the women artisans in India, Prakritik. So, I run a startup along with a trust. That's one thing. Second, I am currently a deputy finance expert with IPE Global. I am consulting multilateral organizations like United States Agency for International Development, etc., on the financial practices of various projects. That includes a lot of things. For example, the financial obligations, compliances, blended finance, etc. Okay. Previously, I have worked with the government, for example, Ministry of Rural Development, and with electronics closely, and with academia like IIT Delhi, and mentored various IITs pan India, and corporates, for example, the Big Fours, KPMG, uh, EY, etc. So the major role I had was into finance and strategy, and then when I started running a trust to promote women entrepreneurship, basic social entrepreneurship, education and sustainability in India, I got to realize that public policy and social impact is something I can happily work towards for the rest of my life. So I am really trying to introduce not just me but my background to all of you, because you need to be really comfortable into this session while I explain a few things. Without that, it's just a waste of our time, including yours. So if there is any question, you can put that in your chat box. Although I always prefer sessions wherein I can really see the participants I am interacting with, but it's okay if there is any question or feedback, then please feel free in sharing that. And Ankit, please let me know if there is any feedback thereafter. Okay. So, with respect to the sessions which I do with the various startups, now it's been years, I always follow a structure so that you can understand things in a very simplified manner. Okay. So मैं आज कोई आपको ऐसा लेक्चर नहीं दूंगी जिसकी वजह से आप सोचोगे कि यार वीकेंड पे नींद आ गई. आपको बहुत ही सिंपल तरीके से समझाया जाएगा, एंड सो दैट यू कैन इम्प्लीमेंट दैट इन योर डेली बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस. Okay, so coming back to the topic, corporate governance best practices. So I will touch upon best practices in the later half of the session. First, we will understand what is corporate governance. All right, and the whole flow of the session will be in W's and H. So that is a strategy I follow when there is a not very technical session I do, and that's a feedback I received initially as well from the audience. In this structure, it's very easy to understand that what is the structure, who will implement it, why it is there, right, and where we should implement it, and how we can do it. So basically, we'll follow W's and H, right? So, going ahead with corporate governance, first you need to imagine governance in your daily life. Okay, so I always treat my startup as a baby. Okay, it's my baby, and governance का बहुत ही basic meaning होता है कि आप there are some basic rules and regulations which you follow so that either you or your baby can be, you know, it's in sync. It's not going towards bad health or, you know, the mishaps, right? So basically, before reading this slide, please try to imagine that startup is your baby. एंड आप अपने बच्चे के लिए क्या करते हैं? आप उनके खाने का ध्यान रखते हैं, कपड़ों का ध्यान रखते हैं, डॉक्टर्स का चेकअप का ध्यान रखते हैं, राइट? टाइमली मैनर में, राइट? यू रेगुलेट इट प्रॉपरली. इफ यू गो डोंट गो फॉर अ चेकअप, कोई इंजेक्शन रह गया जो आपको देना चाहिए था, एंड आफ्टर 3 years यू गेट टू नो बिकॉज नाउ शी इज इल, then of course that will lead to severe health issues, right? In the same manner it happens with startup. So what is corporate governance? And this definition, this is a very I would say bookish definition. इससे पहले मैं आपको तभी you know, I was asking you to imagine certain things like startup is a baby so that you can understand it in a layman's term. Now if you read it, it is a framework that oversees how a company is managed and controlled, involving relationships among shareholders, management, employees, customers, supply, etc. So, but in real world, let me tell you, basic definition of corporate governance is जितने भी आपके stakeholders हैं, including your people, your product, your market, and money. You need to take care of that. These are the four basic elements of any startup, be it a technical startup, non-technical startup, deep tech, you know, various types of startups are there as well. So, Ankit, can you tell me what type of startups have joined in, or they are sector agnostic?
So we have sector agnostic.
I
Uh, majority
Okay.
of our startups are e-commerce based platform. We have few food tech startup and some of our tech based
Mhm.
startups.
All right, then I'll just keep this session sector agnostic. All right. So, in order to understand what corporate governance is, we imagined that how we can, you know, take care of a startup as a baby. Second, you look at the governance structure of any nation, right? So, what the government does, it take care of the not only the domestic affairs of our country but also the shareholders which are out of our country, the foreign institutions, management, the foreign government, and suppliers, exporters, importers, etc., right? So if you just match those basic things which you see on daily basis, how the governance, basic governance is being implemented first in your daily life, then how it is implemented you know, within your startup or by the nation itself at a macro level, then you would realize that it is very important to take care of our relationship with not only the internal management but the external shareholders as well. So the purpose is basically to ensure transparency, accountability, and ethical behavior. However, before defining the purpose of corporate governance, लेट अस टॉक अबाउट अगर हम ये नहीं करते तो क्या होता है, राइट? So if we are not aware about corporate governance, or even we if we are, but we do not have a set structure for it in our organization, then what will happen? You if you're an entrepreneur or startup owner, you must have read various news articles wherein it's mentioned that due to regulatory compliance, this startup is not now, it's not going to be in the IPO, or it's a failure now, or this segment of a very established organization is now a failure. So if you think about all those startups who has literally gone up in seconds in a startup's life is like in years, in months, and then downfall. The downfall was because of this. They were not complying with the governance structure, right? And this is what I have seen in most startups while mentoring them in India. When I ask them what is the compliance, legal and compliance structure they are following in their organization, they are not aware about it. उन्हें लगता है कि आपने इनोवेशन के बारे में सोच लिया, you have brought an amazing product into the market, you have thought about, your target audience as well, you have done the GTM strategy, go to market strategy, or RTM strategy, whatever it is. But when it comes to basic thing, the key pillar of your startup, legal and compliance, that's nowhere. And especially I'm talking about the deep tech startups, or startups which are really, really, you know, can go towards downfall within second. For example, healthcare startups, right? There are various certifications which are required at the initial stages. आपका प्रोडक्ट कितना भी अच्छा हो, इनोवेटिव हो, that will not work if you don't have that particular certification with you. Okay, biggest example is there was a startup you must have or read years back is Theranos, and they brought up with an instrument for blood testing, right? So it's Theranos, Theranus, the name of the startup. They told their customers that they have brought up with a very innovative technology for blood testing. Although, yes, initially their market shares, of course, went up, but when it was checked that, whether they have the certifications or not, within a day it was shut down, right? तो आप देखिए, इतना बड़ा इम्पैक्ट आपके स्टार्टअप पर हो सकता है इफ यू आर नॉट अवेयर अबाउट what is corporate governance, and even if you are not aware, you are just thinking कि क्या ही होगा. This is the mindset, I think it's there in Indian culture, कि compliance नहीं किया तो क्या ही होगा. Let me tell you, बहुत कुछ होता है even in government setups as well, but it takes a second, right? For 10 years, nothing will happen. But once there is somebody who has an eye over your operation, be it for good or bad, then it will lead to disastrous outcomes. I have seen that while auditing, monitoring, and evaluating as well. Right? So, importance तो आपको समझ में आ गई होगी with all those examples I've just shared with you. Ankit, can you change this slide, please? Yeah. So now, why corporate governance matters for startup? See, आपने जब इस सेशन के बारे में सुना होगा, कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस फॉर स्टार्टअप, तो सोचा होगा कि दिस फैंसी वर्ड इज अप्रोप्रिएट फॉर established organizations, not for startups. But why are we getting to learn about this topic? So basically, this is the key pillar, I would say, which is responsible for the success of your organization in the next 1 to 5 year first, right? Because it's not just about creating a structure for your operations. It deals with, like I mentioned, people, product, money, market, and of course, it involves a hike in the trust and credibility, long term sustainability, and attracting investors. Why it is important? Of course, you can read the slide later. I have just explained that if you're not complying with even basic, legalities which are there in your startups, it may lead to failure, or you will have to pay fees which is really out of your pocket. Penalty, that's not really a fee. Penalties पे आप देखते होंगे. You, if you follow some platforms like Your Story and such, various other platforms wherein you can read startup related news, then you would realize that on daily basis, I think there's a percentage I read, almost 35 to 40% of the startups are dying because of this factor, that they are not complying with the governance structure of the which is laid down by your country or by yourself, indeed, right? So of course it built trust and transparency and ethical practices. See, it's not just about uh, penalty and failure. Let me tell you, if you have a very strong structure within an organization, it's easier for you. Up, let me give you a very basic example. I plan my day from morning to night, right? Monday to Friday, be it Monday to Saturday. One day in a week, I feel that, okay, let it be laissez-faire and I'll do whatever I want to do. But Monday to Saturday, that is a very disciplined structure. I have a morning routine, then noon, that these many meetings I'll take in a day, and then a night routine, right? Then hour wise, you divide the day. That half an hour you'll go and run. For 1 hour, you'll go to gym. For 1 hour, you'll read. For 1 hour, you'll spend time with your family, etc. This is how even entrepreneurs like you would require to, you know, strategize a day in order to be successful, right? Otherwise, you would not be able to handle teams. अगर आप खुद की life handle नहीं कर सकते या manage नहीं कर सकते, of course it will be hard for you to handle other people in your organization, right? So you replicate the same thing for your organization. So there is a structure and discipline, right? So, for example, having board of directors. Who should be the board of directors, right? Of course, the expert in the domain you are working in. For example, my startup is related to e-marketplace. So my board of directors would include people coming from having experience from the e-marketplace platform, or they have great exposure to export market if I want to export my product from India to other country, right? So I look after such things. But how would you able to filter that if you have a set structure to uh, onboard your board of directors for your organization? It will, drastically simplify your task. Because if at a leadership position you have experts who are coming with practical insights, they will of course help you in implementing policies and procedure within an organization, which will make the life, your life and people working with you life easier. Okay. So of course that is why corporate governance matter for your startup, for simplicity of your operation, of course your organizational operations, and of course policies and procedure makes process easier. Up, I one example I gave from the real, of course, your day to day life. Another example is the government. Why do we have policies and procedures in our country related to different arena? If we talk about women empowerment, we have certain acts related to that. If we talk about employees benefit, we have certain acts related to that. If we talk about data protection, we have digital protection act with us now, right? So why do we have such practices? Because it makes us easier to implement you know the real mission and visions that we have. All right, another slide please. Okay, so the pillars of corporate governance, like I mentioned, People, process, performance, purpose. It it is again the same thing. People, product, market, money. I think that's, if you focus on people, product, market, money, then under that there are a lot of things come, that becomes complex, and we need another session for that. But here, corporate governance pillar, I would say, if we talk about people, human side of it, I already gave an example of board of governance, governors, a board of directors in your organization. Then comes the senior leadership hierarchy. Who would be the COO, the CEO, right? And then comes the middle management, who will be the managers, right? The line managers, or it is really subjective to the type of startups you're running, and at what stage it is, right? And then of course the subordinates. So it's not just about hiring them and keeping them, but it's about what value you're providing to them. Because if your employees are happy, it's the same thing. If your family members are happy, you are happy, right? So in your startup, if your employees are happy, they will perform better, and there's great results then. Processes, the building blocks ensuring transparency and compliance. So process, here I would say these four things which are mentioned here, it's in a statement, and I can really touch upon the in on it on a very layman term. I will not get into the detail and technicality, because processes involve operational processes, financial processes, right? Right, digital. And now we talk about the digital processes as well. So there are various types of processes as well which needs to be taken care of, right? In the same manner, legal and compliance का भी एक process होता है, ठीक है? If you take up a project, for example, you're a social entrepreneur and you got a project from a multilateral organization, then they have hefty, I would say, paperwork which involves operational processes, financial processes, right? And if you're not complying with the rules which are mentioned by them as well, it's not just about the policies that we have in India, but when you work with a multilateral organization, they have certain rules as well, and we need to comply, right? So you need to have that bird's eye view towards each and everything with respect to that. Okay. Then performance, you are everybody. I think you are aware about performance metric driven accountability, purpose, alignment of mission and values. I have already explained these things with the help of examples, individual, nation, and corporates, and how it is important for the startups. And basic pillars, of course, here, which is not mentioned on the slide as well. Pillar of corporate governance, and the first strongest pillar is, which I am repeating since I started this session, is the legal and compliance. जिस दिन से आप अपनी कंपनी को रजिस्टर करते हैं, वहाँ से आपके compliances शुरू हो जाते हैं. Although there are many ease outs given by the government in the last 2 to 5 years for the startups, but still, if you have a techno startup, if you have a healthcare based startup, or even now e-marketplace, then always have a look towards what are the changes happening, or you can hire somebody like CS or CA who can look after all these things effectively, right? And yeah, next slide please.
Priya, I just want to have little more clarification here. Sometimes जब स्टार्टअप से हम लोग डिस्कशन करते हैं, so स्टार्टअप का कुछ कई बार रिस्पॉन्स होता है कि they are in very beginning stage and they have only founder and co-founder, only two member in a team. So why they need to define this corporate governance policy for them in the beginning? सो इस स्टेज में उनके लिए कितना इम्पोर्टेंट होता है कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस पॉलिसी को ड्राफ्ट करना या उसको अलाइन करना?
Yeah, very nice question. That is why I asked the types of startups who have joined the session, right? So, corporate governance, वो मैंने शुरू में ही बोला था, this governance structure is not just important for the very well-to-do established organizations. अगर मैंने अकेले कंपनी शुरू करी है, तब भी compliances होंगे because me as a person and organization is an another person technically. ये हमने शुरुआती मैनेजमेंट एंड अकाउंट्स में सबने पढ़ा हुआ है that we are a person, our organization is a different person altogether, right? And if you are starting even as an individual, there are some structures which are already defined by the governance. So external governance की बात मैं कर रही हूँ, अभी अभी internal बात नहीं कर रही. Internal comes into picture when your team size is extending, right? But initially, suppose I started Prakritik and I got it registered as private company, right? Then there are certain regulations related to private company, that how many shareholding does it have, right? मेरे पास कितना है, 100% है, 80% है, 70% है. Is there any board of director which I am looking to hire in the next 2 to 5 years? So these are the basic things which I need to define with respect to the organizational structure, right? Although initially इतनी complexity नहीं होती है in, if I talk about non-technical startup, right? But if it is a deep tech startup or healthcare related startup, so there comes other types of compliances and procedure. So initially your complexity related to people will be low for startups, right? क्योंकि आपके पास इतने लोग नहीं है. प्रोसेसेस का भी कम होगा क्योंकि सेट प्रोसेस, ऑपरेशनल प्रोसेस बहुत ही इजी होगा बिकॉज देयर आर जस्ट टू पीपल, वन प्रोडक्ट. अभी तक मार्केट में आप उस तरीके से नहीं उतरे हैं जितना द अदर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस आर वर्किंग, राइट? दैट इज रियली सब्जेक्टिव टू एट व्हाट स्टेज द स्टार्टअप इज. अभी अभी सिर्फ आइडिएट किया है या फिर मार्केट रेडी हुए हैं या फिर मार्केट में उतर चुके हैं, राइट? अगर मार्केट में उतर चुके हैं एंड स्टिल देयर आर 2 to 5 people और 10 people, आई वुड से इट इज easier. पेपर प्रोसेस परफॉर्मेंस पर्पस. एंड इनिशियली ही अगर इन चीजों को हमने बहुत ही अच्छे से पकड़ बना ली, आगे जाके प्रॉब्लम नहीं आती है, राइट? अगर इनिशियली ही इग्नोर कर दिया कि यार अभी ऑपरेशनल डॉक्यूमेंट बनाने से हमें क्या मिलेगा, क्या पता उस स्टेज पर भी आपकी कॉस्ट कटिंग हो जाए. So what startups look towards, which I as an entrepreneur also look forward to, is cost cutting, right? So initially अगर कोई operational document ऐसा बना दिया जिसके वजह से मेरे जो processes हैं वो easier है. Suppose I manufacture XYZ product and मैंने operational document इतना effective बनाया या बनवाया जिसकी वजह से मेरा 2 rupees per unit cost कम हो गया and I'm selling 10,000 units per month. You see the difference, right? So this is a kind of brownie point which startups can get initially, and of course if they do it for long run then it's not going to be tough for them to implement. I have seen startups, big startups, if you read about them, those who became unicorn as well, but be it operational efficiency or financial efficiency, they were not really good at it. Their organization, I would say, right? So उनका cost बढ़ता जा रहा था. Why Uber Eats did not work in India? Why Zomato is still working? Swiggy is still working, although they are incurring huge losses, but still working. They have different stories altogether, but one of the reason is that ऑपरेशनल एफिशिएंसी पे आपने ध्यान नहीं दिया, मैनेजरियल एफिशिएंसी पे ध्यान नहीं दिया, शुरू से ही नहीं दिया, राइट? अगर शुरू से दिया होता सो यू माइट बी सर्वाइविंग राइट नाउ, ठीक है?
And Priya,
सो
you
दैट इज
also
व्हाई.
also highlight this term external governance. That means somehow they already become a part of external governance. अभी उनको एज अ ट्रू मेंबर ऑफ स्टार्टअप वो अपना इंटरनल गवर्नेंस बनाएंगे, बट दे आर ऑलरेडी पार्ट ऑफ एनी एक्सटर्नल गवर्नेंस, तो उसमें उनको फिट बैठना है. सो यस, ऑल व्यूअर्स, ये आप लोगों के लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है, बिकॉज आपकी जब वेल डिफाइंड पॉलिसी होगी तो आपकी ऑपरेशनल एफिशिएंसी ज्यादा बढ़ेगी. सो इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू हैव द वेल डिफाइंड कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस इन द बिगिनिंग स्टेज. यस,
Yes.
प्लीज.
Yeah, because anyways, we all are part of this society and environment. So we are, unquestionably answerable to the external government structure first, right? So वहाँ कोई इशू होता है तो कोई बचा नहीं पाता है so उसका ध्यान रखना शुरू से बहुत important है, right? So I hope my voice is not annoying all of you because I'm just breathing issue हो रहा है मुझे थोड़ा बोलते हुए. I hope it's fine with all of you. I'm audible. जल्दी
Yes,
जल्दी
yes.
तो नहीं बोल रही ना?
No, no,
All
no.
right. All right, all right. So, key component of effective corporate governance. So, till now, we have understood what is corporate governance, right? Who executed first as an entrepreneur. If you have a very early stage startup, you implement it, and of course, thereafter the stages comes wherein you have board of directors and senior leadership as well, right? So who हमने cover किया, what cover किया, by giving an example of your own baby and the government, what the corporate governance structure looks like, right? And why it is important. We have talked about the startups who failed because of lack of effective governance structure, right? And why did they fail? We discussed about that as well. So, who, what, why, we have understood. Where do we implement it? Of course, in our organization, within the organization, and outside the organization, as well as the need arises. So, how I try to explain certain terms to startup owners, that is entrepreneurs, because you all are coming from different background. Some of them are engineers, some of them from management, or vice versa. I always use practical or day to day wala example, so that you try to understand that, and I hope you are understanding that. कोई भी अगर डाउट है आपको तो आप कमेंट्स में लिख दीजिए during the session or after the session. I'll get back to you. Okay. So now, where we have discussed and how we implement it now. So before sharing how, like I mentioned, we here in this topic today we are discussing corporate governance and its best practices. So the best practices now we will discuss, and then I will tell you how we can implement it, right? So here, which is already visible on the slide, is board of director, transparency and disclosure policy, risk management and compliance measures. These are key components of best practices as well, right? So best practices that, let me read out to you because that is written in my notes, not on the slide, right? So first is strategic decision making. अभी जैसे कि अंकित और मैंने डिस्कस किया, how it will help startups to be successful or successfully implement their policies. Why it is important at a very early stage? It is very important for you to make decisions, strategic decisions. Okay. For example, before starting out my day, I always write down things in bullet points, that I need to do this, number one, I need to do this, number two, three, four, five, six. This is the proper flow which I follow throughout the day. In the same manner, when you make certain documents for your management or for yourself or for your organization, when you're complying with the CG structure, that is corporate governance structure, you do this. And this helps you to be strategic towards your outlook so that you don't waste time, you don't waste money and your resources. Let's take an example. If you have a team of 10 people and उसी में कुछ marketing के हैं, कुछ finance के हैं, and some core operations and you, right? Now you want that maximum efficiency कैसे achieve हो? Maximum efficiency का मतलब है कम से कम resources के साथ ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा output. और एज एन entrepreneur क्या, मेरे पास अगर एक दुकान भी है, मैं भी यही चाहूंगी कि अगर मेरे 10 रुपए खर्च हो रहे हैं, मुझे 15 मिलने चाहिए, है ना? या फिर 10 के 10 कम से कम वो तो मिले, राइट? So in order to achieve that, we need to be really prudent with our actions, and that is done when we have documented steps with us. Not everything can be documented क्योंकि काफी चीजें uncertain होती हैं, especially for startups. But कुछ हद तक अगर आप planning करके चलते हैं, then you're well prepared. So it helps you to be strategic towards your decisions. All right. Second is access to capital. This is a very important point for any startup. When you pitch it to any investor, that is your idea, or अगर आप uh, if you're not even looking for investors, if you're looking towards organic growth matlab you have used your own money and now market will give you the returns, right, by selling your services, your product. So in that manner, if you are having a structure for your team, suppose आप pitch deck भी बनाते हैं तो उसमें सब कुछ mention होता है कि within 1 year we will achieve the break even point, within 5 years we'll have this much revenue. आप पूरा financial projections बनाते हैं, right? You will share the name of your team members as well. You will share the vision statement, mission statement, etc. Okay, so it helps you to access the capital. आप चाहे बैंक के पास जाएं, right? Yeah, multilateral organization, yeah, government for grants or the investors, any kind of investor, you need to have that document with you. So, जो आप pitch deck startup culture में बोलते हैं, that is of course a part of corporate governance, right? आप basically यही मान लीजिए that is a part of your corporate governance. Okay. Third is risk management. Just a minute. Sorry. So risk management. Um, so this is one of the gray area which startups do not really look at in my experience, because आपको लगता है आपने प्रोडक्ट बना दिया, मार्केट है, अब तो माल बिकेगा, बस खत्म. So वो attitude, it's good, it's confident, it's nice enough, but there is always a risk behind or beneath the surface, right? For example, there are multiple competitors. ठीक है, आप किसी established company का example लीजिए. Like you suppose you use Lux. I don't use Lux. I don't like Lux. But if you use Lux, then there are thousands of other soaps available in the market by different brands. अब suppose initially जब मुझे लगा कि सिर्फ 10 competitors है मेरे, तो मैंने risk calculate किया कि अगर सिर्फ मैं अकेली होती मार्केट में लक्स को लेकर, तो मुझे 100% मार्जिन मिलता मार्केट का. बट मेरे 10 कंपटीटर है, तो वो 10 टुकड़ों में बांट लीजिए. बट सपोज आपको पता ही नहीं है, एक्चुअली में पता लगा वो तो 100 कंपटीटर्स है एंड यू आर नो वेयर, यू आर जस्ट 0.01% ऑफ द मार्केट. अब उस रिस्क को आप बैलेंस कैसे करेंगे, जैसे हम टेक्निकल टर्म में बोलते हैं हेजिंग. उस रिस्क को आप हेज कैसे करेंगे? So there are various instruments available in the market. So मैं सेशन को एक फाइनेंस स्पेसिफिक सेशन नहीं बनाना चाहती, बट आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट कि अगर रिस्क है जो हमेशा हर प्रोडक्ट और सर्विस के केस में होता है, देन यू नीड टू मिटिगेट इट. मिटिगेट मतलब खत्म करना या फिर कम करना, ठीक है? सो फॉर दैट यू डू रिस्क मैनेजमेंट प्रैक्टिसेस. Alright, and that is a part of corporate governance. Then, talent attraction and retention. Of course, if you put yourself into an employee's shoe, you would like to join an organization which is always respecting and valuing the employees and the customer, which is growing, and of course, like we always emphasize on the culture that Google offices have. Right, they have really pro culture towards employees, be it for pregnant women, be it for male employees, be it for LGBTQ. They take care of a lot of angles, right? So in the same manner, you have to really take care of these basic nitty gritties. It's not just about money all the time. पैसे एक एम्प्लॉय को बहुत जगह से मिलते हैं कई बार. There are many offers in a good employee's hand, But wherever he or she will join is where he or she sees the value. Okay? And by value, I mean the ethics that you have. For example, as an individual, I have my own ethics, right? I have certain ethics in my life, you have certain ethics in your life. Like I mentioned, I like to, spend my Sundays like reading a lot, going out, etc. Then it's kind of a not a rule, but sort of ethic, I would say, in my individual life, right? If suppose on every day I need at least half an hour to 1 hour with my mother, that is one ethic which I have, right? In the same manner, every organization should have that. Let me tell you, in my experience with different organizations, sectors altogether, uh, they were organization who really didn't care that ठीक है पैसे अच्छे मिल रहे हैं ना सबको बात खत्म. एंड टू बी ऑनेस्ट उनका एम्प्लॉय रिटेंशन बहुत कम था. 1 साल से ज्यादा कोई टिकता ही नहीं था ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में. And just you can understand, if nobody is staying with you even for 1 year or more than 1 year, then it will hamper your operations, it will hamper your cost, it will hamper your overall profitability of the organization, right? And there were organizations I worked and I felt that overwhelming, right? I never feel that just because of career I had to move on, but personally I felt that okay, this is the organization wherein I'm feeling so comfortable mentally, right? So you need to take care of those sort of ethics and values. Then partnerships and alliances. So basically, to be honest, if you take care of your strategy document, your stakeholders, your talent, then of course your partners will be, happy to join you. For example, you want to collaborate with a multi national organization, not multilateral, multinational organization. So, multinational organizations or companies, for example, it is from Singapore, they will have a value document as well, not just a strategy document. So, if they see that you are following the sustainable development goals, or you are having some values related to sustainability or gender specific, right? Then they will be happy to partner with you as compared to with somebody who does not have these sort of value documents. Okay, so in this way you attract partnerships and alliances as well. Then last, of course, operational efficiency I've already talked about. Okay, so this is a basic uh, you know uh, best practices of corporate governance we can talk about during this session. We could talk about basically because there are a lot of things which come under one domain. If I talk about operational efficiency, उसके अंदर ही इतना सब कुछ आता है कि 2 घंटे की क्लास हो जाएगी. Okay, so basically I hope I'm able to primer your thoughts that these are the all things which come under. Okay, CJ. Yeah, Ankit, you want to say something?
Yes, so you mentioned the very important point about the value documentation, क्योंकि कई बार बहुत ध्यान नहीं जाता कि क्या है ये. along with the strategy document, वैल्यू डॉक्यूमेंट्स का पॉइंट आपने बहुत अच्छा मेंशन किया. दैट मींस यू मस्ट हैव सम कोर वैल्यू कि आप ग्रीन एनर्जी को प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, आप वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट को प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट को प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, आप एनवायरमेंट फ्रेंडली प्रैक्टिसेस अडॉप्ट कर रहे हैं. एंड इट्स माइट बी अ वन पेज डॉक्यूमेंट, बट इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इफ यू हैव दिस. दैट इज वेरी वेल
It
यू
is.
मेंशन हाइलाइट्स.
Yeah, it is very important. Especially, it is very important for the startups to understand that now there is a very thin line between social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, because every business is now looked at with that perspective of society and environment. So, by that society and environment, it's not about donation or CSR now. It's now about blended finance. It's not. It's now about impact. Okay, and with impact there can be business, right? No business can survive without impact. Okay, now best practices I've already talked about. This is very basic which is written on this slide. मैंने थोड़ा स्पाइस और डाल दिया उसके अंदर. So so if still somebody has any confusion, then get back to me later after this session. All right. So yeah, case study. I have already shared some cases examples with you. Although I'll just read out this. These are, I think, they. I need some water. Just give me some 2 seconds.
ओके, सो एज वी नाउ डिस्कस कि हमारा जो कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस है उसमें बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स होनी चाहिए, आपकी वेल डिफाइंड पॉलिसी होना चाहिए. सो एज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस इन आवर इंक्यूबेशन, वी ऑल्सो हेल्प स्टार्टअप्स टू एस्टैब्लिश देयर एडवाइजरी बोर्ड. हम लोग स्टार्टअप्स को अपने तरफ से रिकमेंड करते हैं कि आपके पास ये 3 मेंटर्स हैं जिनको आप अपना एडवाइजरी बोर्ड बना सकते हैं. क्योंकि उस इनिशियली स्टार्टअप्स ये क्वेरी करते हैं कि उनके पास ऐसे कोई गाइड करने वाले पर्सन नहीं है या उनको पे करने के लिए अमाउंट नहीं है उनके पास. So we also recommend some of the mentors who will going to join you as advisory board as volunteering basis. So ये भी हम लोग एज अ इंक्यूबेटर एक बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस अडॉप्ट करते हैं, बिकॉज वंस यू हैव अब एडवाइजरी बोर्ड जो आपको छोटे छोटे सी एडवाइस दे सकता है, जो आपकी किसी प्रॉब्लम पे आपकी हेल्प कर सकता है, दे ऑल्सो बी अ पार्ट ऑफ योर कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस स्ट्रक्चर. ये एज अ इंक्यूबेटर हम लोग जो है रिकमेंड करते हैं स्टार्टअप्स को.
Great, great. I mean, this is one thing I have heard after a long time from incubators side, because this is really important, not just for the sake of having just a board, but values from experienced people who can help you to improve your product or service or operations thereof. So great practice. Yeah. So coming back to the presentation, so here, if you look at the logo Tatas, we all know about Tatas. They are the greatest philanthropists of the world, I would now say. And like I mentioned, ethical values and the value document that we have discussed is really important. And if you closely read the profitability, the reason behind profitabilities of Tatas, it's because of philanthropy, right? It's because of ethical values. They take care of everybody. I mean, even the old age people now, they have libraries. They, for old age people, they are again come up with something in the silver economy, right? So we all are happy, even if you're not using their product. Suppose if I'm not using their product, I'm happy that Tata exists, because they are doing a lot for our society, maybe more than the government, right? So in the same way, you need to take care of your ethical values like Tata's. Matlab, you can just make them your mentor. They cannot guide you directly, but indirectly they are a mentor. Yeah. Amazon. See, um, Amazon or any big tech, um, or basically these people are really established, right? So giving these sort of example of to startups, initially I hesitate, because these Amazon and other groups, they have billions to invest in, billions, right, into the process. But of course, this is a good example. They have set structures, and they, this one thing which I have seen uniqueness in Amazon is they keep away from the controversies. अगर कोई controversy which is really easy to make in this digital world comes up, they have their answers ready, because they are very transparent, right? So in this, yeah, big text, जैसे कि मैंने बोला था, Apple as well. We have worked with Apple closely. So since they are big techs, they are anyways mandated to be very transparent. Okay, because with all that data that they are consuming from the customers, they need to be transparent. In the same manner, this is a good lesson for the startups to be uh, very transparent to yourself first, right? Because I think it comes from within. Because startups, initially you're just one person, and then the other person joins in, and then the team, and thereafter. So if you follow some, really strong values for yourself, then that is reflective in your, team and the people you're working with. So this is what my employees or volunteers have mentioned, that this is one thing I have learned from Priya ma'am. Or I always say, this is, one thing I have learned from my subordinate or my uh, you know mentors or peers. So keep that in mind. That is, अगर आपको ज़्यादा टाइम तक मार्केट में टिकना है, then you need to be really truthful to yourself and your organization. Then that's as simple as that. Yeah. Next slide please. उससे पहले भी कुछ था? कंक्लूजन एंड की टेकअवे से पहले आई वुड लाइक टू टेल यू, सो कई बार होता है कि हम ज्ञान बहुत दे देते हैं सेशंस में, राइट? बट I hope this gyan, which was really simple to understand first. Second, ज्ञान देने के साथ साथ I believe in one thing, that is how to apply that gyan. Because when I was in NEET and people used to give gyan to me, I was like, no way, I cannot. Just tell me how to do it, right? So I'm just gonna tell you how you can really implement corporate governance strategy in your startup. Okay, बहुत ही brief बताऊंगी. If you have pen and paper, you can write it. And then after the session, if you have any doubt, like I'm repeating it in the session, then come back to me. Okay, so there's a set process. The first point is access the current status. So first you need to assess कि आप कहाँ stand करते हैं, right? At what stage you are. So it's not about the stage as a starter, but stage as a management. अभी तक कुछ compliances पर ध्यान दिया है या नहीं? अभी तक people, product, market, money से related जितने भी policies and regulations available हैं, have you given any attention to that or not? Right? So just assess, simply assess what you are and how you are doing it first. Second is define governance objectives. Now, like at the beginning of this session, I mentioned there is external and another one is internal. External वो है जो आप change नहीं कर सकते most of the time. In a democracy, yes, you can, but it takes years. Internal is what you create for yourself. Like in every family, there are certain, cultures. In every startup, they have certain culture, right? So that you can define on yourself कि आपको किस तरीके का culture develop करना है in the long run. So define that effectively. And third, establish the framework. Okay, so the framework is really important. Anything which you do, be it planning your day as an entrepreneur or planning the whole structure of the organization, there should be a framework to do it. Otherwise, how to do it is just in the air. It's not being implemented then, right? So for that framework, you can write down, you can define an organizational structure. First thing, key, how many people you are anticipating that would join this year or for the next 5 years, or the kind of process you're going to follow, okay, etc. Then second is decision making process. So decision making कैसे होगा? Top to bottom होगा, bottom to top होगा? This is really important because decision making process में कई बार time इतना लग जाता है. If you just compare the structure that we have in our government and in private organization, just compare that. It's just about decision making process. I'm not blaming government. At one point they need to be really calculative because they are dealing with the public at mass, but apart from calculation there are a lot of things which goes on, right? So make sure that you are not navigating into the wrong direction, right? Then next is compliance measures. We have already discussed it. You need to uh, ask any technical person, be it finance expert or CACS, because like a doctor is expert in their health wala thing. CACS, they know well about finance health. So talk to them and know about your compliance measures, right? Then reporting and accountability. कौन किसको report करेगा, कैसे करेगा, कब करेगा, and how the whole process should be. That is very important as well to be navigated first. as an individual, as an entrepreneur first. Okay. Then last is transparency and disclosure that we have already discussed into the framework. So there are five things I have explained into the framework. Okay. So after that, build an effective board of directors. We have already discussed it. They should be experts coming with years of experiences. If not years, then of course the experience should be that good enough कि आपकी organization एक सही direction में जाए. Okay. Then implement risk management strategies. We have discussed it, how important it is. Then promote training and development and a positive work culture. Training and development for yourself, even it is very important. चाहे आपने प्रोडक्ट खुद इनोवेट किया हो over the period of time, you will deplete if you're not giving proper, you know, space to yourself for training and development. Last is monitor and evaluate. So this is the basic structure which you can follow in order to apply the corporate governance structure as a startup. Okay. I have not shared any insight related to established organizations because that's just waste for you right now. Okay. So I hope this session has been knowledgeable enough for all of you and not a lot for you. अगर कोई भी डाउट है तो आप प्लीज मुझसे पूछिए अभी या बाद में बट आई होप आई डिड जस्टिस एंड थैंक यू सो मच एंजॉय योर टी आफ्टर दिस
Very true. So, dear viewers and all startups, आज हमने corporate governance का importance जाना, साथ ही बहुत सारे real life example के साथ प्रिया ने हमें explain किया. And yes, by this session आप जो है अपना एक corporate governance policy create करेंगे और उसमें आप काफी सारी चीजें ऐड करेंगे जो प्रिया ने रिकमेंड की है और इसके साथ आप इस स्टेप से एक स्टेप आगे बढ़ेंगे बिकॉज कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस पॉलिसी जो है वो आपका एक बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट डॉक्यूमेंट है जो आपको आगे की प्रोसेस के लिए भी गाइड करेगा. वंस अगेन प्रिया, थैंक यू वेरी मच ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ झांसी स्मार्ट सिटी एंड झांसी राइज इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर. आपको हेल्थ इशू था बट उसके बाद भी आपने काफी अच्छे से काफी जॉयफुली एक्सप्लेन किया. सो थैंक यू फॉर दिस. थैंक यू सो मच.
माय प्लेजर थैंक यू सो मच
थैंक यू.